Welcome to this week's Dear Old State Update. I'm Adrianna Gallucci, joined alongside Jezenia Marrero, here to highlight our beat reporters who provided coverage all across campus the past 2 weeks.
Penn State football hosted its pro day where past and current Nittany Lions performed in front of NFL scouts. This was a great time for players who didn't attend the combine to show off their talents. Let's hear from Tim Rogers, Amanda Vogt, and Justin Ciavolella.
Thanks, Adrianna and Jezenia. Although it may be March, Penn State football has still created some very interesting talking points, with most notably being Penn State Pro Day. And now Pro Day happened, guys, last Friday. A lot of interesting storylines that came out of it. Amanda, I'm going to start with you on this one. Who really stood out to you?
Yeah, Curtis Jacobs is the player who I think stood out to me the most. He participated in the combine and only did 3 drills at Pro Day, the 3-cone drill, the shuttle, and the broad jump, where he had jumped 10 feet 9 inches, which was really impressive. But what stood out to me the most is how he handled himself when speaking to the media after the fact. You got to hear he feels really confident. He is very versatile as a linebacker, playing Mike, Sam, and Will, all while being at Penn State. And he understands that special teams might be where he has to thrive originally on the NFL roster he might get selected to. But his mental abilities to think through situations is something that impressed me the most. He was telling us about how in interviews with teams, they were asking some out-of-the-box questions, including how many basketballs fit in a school bus. And while some players might have just said, 100, 300, he was thinking about this. He was going through all the different scenarios of if the basketballs were inflated or deflated, if the seats were in the school buses, where they were, and how that would happen. And it all translates as to how he was taught to analyze the different awareness he has on the field as a linebacker who has moved around a lot for Penn State. And I think that having that confidence to trust your ability and to trust different ways to attack a situation can make him really wantable for many different NFL rosters going into the draft at the end of April.
Yeah, well, Curtis Jacobs isn't just better than me at football, but he must be better at me in terms of those questions, because I would have told them at least one. But speaking of a guy who does well testing, Theo Johnson, and it was less about his pro day performance and more about his NFL combine performance. The 6'6" tight end, over 260 pounds, ran a 4.57.40. I mean, that's unheard of. He ran faster than some wide receivers did at the combine. He ran faster than his teammate Kalen King, who plays cornerback at the NFL Combine. You see the other stats there, the broad jump, the 3-cone. There's a made-up number, and I know a lot of numbers in sports are made up. It's called the raw athletic score, and Theo Johnson graded 9.99 out of 10. And sure, might be one of those made-up numbers that nobody actually knows how it, figures, but out of all tight ends over the last 37 years, he ranks second out of all of them in that score. Just, you saw his athletic abilities on the field, but he really proved it, with the testing at the combine. And while we were all at Pro Day the other day, he made really nice catches. His route running was crisp. The one question for him would be his blocking. It's always been a question for him. However, they were working on it at Pro Day. It looked to be pretty sharp. And more importantly, you have to look at how the NFL is nowadays. Tight ends are rarely used in the blocking schemes that they used to be. He can now chip and go out and run a route, and Theo Johnson, he's going to work well for some teams. I know you two root for the New York Jets, and they're heavily interested in Theo Johnson.
Well, Justin, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, you saw both the Jets tight end coach and the Chicago Bears tight end coach at the Pro Day working individually with Theo Johnson. And so, yes, maybe he didn't have the most impressive Pro Day, but those two teams sure took great interest in him and made sure they were setting up meetings with him, which was really interesting. Justin, I'm going to ask you another quick question here. Where do you think he is going to fall with his draft stock now after these performances?
Right at the end of the season, may have said 4th or 5th. He's looking to me like a sure day 2 pick. I would say 3rd round to play it safe, but I wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Jets or maybe the Bears go for a 2nd round to make sure they lock up arguably the most athletic tight end and really maybe specimen in the draft.
Now, look, as you can see here, 2 big additions that have happened to this Penn State roster. What are you expecting to see Penn State do specifically next season?
Well, I would like to say I would have loved to see Theo Johnson under Andy Koltanicki, the one on your left, the offensive coordinator for Penn State. It's going to be now creativity and consistency. Those are the big things under him. And James Franklin the other day may have said, we can't really do what you did at Kansas. Neither. Same thing with Tom Allen. We can't do what you did in Indiana. Same thing with Justin Lustig, the special teams coordinator. Can't do what you did at Vanderbilt. But you hire these guys for reasons, and the big thing with Nittany was the creativity and the consistency that you need for Drew Aller, and Drew Aller on his own accord needs to be more consistent. I expect that on the offensive end. You go quickly now to the defensive end with Tom Allen. Penn State's defense, no matter who's running it, they tend to run it the same way. Brent Pry, Manny Diaz added a couple more blitzes, but I have a feeling Tom Allen's either going to be a little less blitzy than Manny Diaz, or is just going to be exactly what Brent Pry was. At the end of it, Penn State has a unique defense with their lion position, and that's the difference maker. It doesn't matter who's running it.
Yeah, and the install process of how this is going to look isn't something that really started until spring ball started last week. And that's something that James Franklin's been asking the hard questions from Andy Nittany and Tom Allen of what will benefit Penn State the most. And that's not just taking a play from Kansas and a play from Indiana and putting it with what Penn State had. That's picking and choosing and wrapping from all different areas and forcing people out of their comfort zones in order to build something that'll elevate Penn State as a whole. And these two coordinators bring a lot to the table.
Well, you guys are absolutely right, and we're going to have to see how that Penn State roster does, as well as former Penn State players like Olu Fashanu and Chop Robinson end up at this year's NFL Draft starting April 25th in Detroit, Michigan. Now that's all for us. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Tim. It was a really exciting pro day, and I really can't wait to see where these football players end up.
Men's volleyball picked up a comeback win in both games against St. Francis. Let's hear from Matt Becker and Bronwyn Liber for more about the team.
Thanks, you guys. Matt was with me as we attended Sunday's game in Rec Hall. The number 10 Nittany Lions traveled down and back I-99 to face their interstate rivals, the Red Flash of St. Francis. Both games went to a final 5th set. Let's take a look at Matt's recap of the weekend.
With the release of the schedules, there is always a dreaded potential post-spring break trap game. With that said, this is a series that St. Francis always seems to have marked on their calendars.
I know, as a player on the team, we definitely circle this game on our calendars as a big, Pennsylvania rivalry here because it's Penn State. It's only an hour away. Kind of everyone knows them, and we feel like we're going to, focus our whole week as to giving them the best shot we can.
On the road for the Battle of I-99, there was a rare sea of green returning home as Penn State turned the luck around against St. Francis. The Nittany Lions managed to come back in both games and win it in 5. Both teams had an abnormal amount of service errors, but with that came numerous service aces from one of the best serving teams in the nation.
St. Francis, the last 2 nights, in stretches, served us tougher than any other team we have played this year.
Penn State came back from down 2-0 and 2-1 on the weekend, and John Kerr can be credited to the Nittany Lions' survival, leading the team in kills, having gotten 34 in their sweep.
Well, I think Johnny's learning right now that he's 6'7" and touches 11'7", and I think he's done a real good job of playing to that strength.
Whether it was the luck of the Irish or Kerr's performance, the Nittany Lions took the sweep. For Penn State Sports Night, I'm Matt Becker.
Penn State now returns to the EIVA portion of its schedule when it hosts Harvard for a pair of matches at Rec Hall. The Nittany Lions lead the EIVA at 4-0, while the Crimson sit in 2nd place. Now tossing it over to Rob Cardini, Chris Machado, and Declan Stablow, who will give you the Big Ten Wrestling Tournament recap and everything you need to know as they head into the NCAA tournament.
Thanks, guys. Last weekend, Penn State Wrestling won their 8th Big Ten championship under head coach Cale Sanderson and also racked up 5 individual champions, including Braden Davis, Levi Haynes, Mitchell Messenbrink, Aaron Brooks, and Greg Kirkfleet. But before we get into how they wrestled, Declan, I want to ask you, what was your experience like covering the tournament in Maryland?
Well, after reporting on this team all season, it definitely was an incredible opportunity to be up close and really in the action. I did almost get crashed into a few times, but that was just part of the experience. The camera survived. One thing that really stands out about this Penn State team is that they're a lot more reserved than the other teams you see there, and that goes for both players and coaches. A lot of rosters you'd see at the side of mats during matches cheering on their teammates, but Penn State, you generally only see the guy wrestling and the guy on deck, and that definitely stems from Coach Cale Sanderson. We've obviously seen him in press conferences. He's a reserved guy himself. And he's a much different head coach than the rest of the ones in the Big Ten because he's not as vocal on the side of the mat. He trusts his guys to win their own fights, but when it comes to prepping them before, you'll always see him in his wrestlers' ears making sure they're ready.
Sounds like an amazing experience. Now let's get into the wrestling itself. With Penn State having 5 champs, who's someone that stood out to you? Chris, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, at 157, Levi Haynes getting his second individual Big Ten championship at 157. Came down to the wire, 1-1 the whole way. Sudden victory, gets a takedown, makes it 4-1. Levi's a champ, and guess what? Now he's headed to Kansas City as the number 157 in the whole country. And you know what? Then let's move all the way up another 40 pounds or so. 197, Aaron Brooks, going for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Got his 4th Big Ten individual title, 4 consecutive years for the 5th-year senior, and he looks phenomenal. It was a 19-3 tech fall. What a phenomenal season both those guys had, and not to mention Aaron Brooks as well, also going to be the number 1 seed at 197 in Kansas City, and he was awarded the Outstanding Wrestler of the entire tournament by the Big Ten and Big Ten's Wrestler of the Year, not just at 197, the whole conference.
Yeah, and worth noting for Brooks, that's his first title at 197, was competing at 184 before that. But I'm going to go back to the younger guys. I'm going to talk about Braden Davis first, who made history for Penn State as the first Nittany Lion to win at 125, win the individual conference title since 1999. He won 2 upset matches to get that title. And now for the first time all season, he's ranked as the number 1 wrestler at 125 heading into nationals. This is also the first time we'll see him with something to defend as opposed to something to prove. We'll see if that changes his style a little bit. The next guy I'm going to talk about is another older guy, and probably the most noteworthy guy who didn't claim the individual title, Bo Bartlett at 141, who lost a heartbreaking match against Jesse Mendez, a rematch from the regular season. Bartlett gave up that takedown with just 11 seconds left, a really close match, just like the first time they played. And one of the most intriguing storylines heading into Natties is going to be a potential round 3 between these two.
Yeah, all great insights, guys. One guy I want to focus on is someone that I talked about weeks ago in the middle of the season, Mitchell Messenbrink. It seemed like all season people were waiting for him to have a hiccup and lose his first match, but his relentless style of wrestling just keeps resulting in victories. And now, Big Ten tournament, he's in the final going up against the number 1 seed. He finds himself down 6-1 after the first period. At one point, he's down 9-2 in the match, but he claws his way back, and in the third period, he had a huge takedown. But also got near fall points and ends up winning 13-11. I don't know how he does it. Maybe it's because he walks out to Drake. I'm not really sure. But one thing that I do know is he never loses confidence. Now I want to focus to the NCAAs. And one guy that I'm really looking out for is Carter Starachi. And is he going to be healthy enough to wrestle at the level that we've seen him wrestle at? Now, because he had to have injury forfeits at the Big Tens, he got an at-large bid, and he's the 9 seed. This 9 seed is crucial because now he could have a potential 3rd-round matchup with the number 1 overall seed from Virginia Tech in the tournament. But I want to hear, what are you guys looking forward to NCAAs? Declan?
Well, when you look at this Penn State roster, there's obviously some pretty decorated trophy shelves you've got, but there's also some noteworthy guys who haven't gotten that individual hardware. I already mentioned Bo Bartlett, who once again came up just short at the conference titles. This national title is one of his last chances to claim a serious individual title. Same with Bernie Truex, who in just his 1 year here has been a phenomenal asset to Penn State. And, you know, it's always great to see these guys stack trophy on top of trophy on top of trophy. But to me, nothing is more special than seeing guys get there first.
And then for myself, we'll make this short and sweet. I mentioned Aaron Brooks got 4 Big Ten titles. Well, guess what? He's also going for his 4th Natty now in Kansas City. And then I'm just going to give some love to the heavyweight Greg Kirkfleet. Last year was the number 3 seed. He lost against Paris to Michigan. And now he's number 1, and he's there with a vengeance.
The first round gets underway this Thursday in Kansas City, Missouri, with Penn State looking to add another title to the resume. Now let's head over to Joey David and Nico Rodriguez with women's basketball.
Thanks, Chris, Declan, and Rob. While the Lady Lions were unable to go dancing in March Madness, they were, however, awarded the top seed in the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament. So, Nico, what do you think was the main culprit of why this team wasn't able to make it to March Madness?
Yeah, Joey. So January 31st, the Lady Lions were in Minneapolis at the Target Center playing Minnesota when graduate senior guard Tay Valde tore her ACL, and then everything went down there the rest of the way. They just were not the same team as they were earlier on. They lost 6 straight and won 1 game in the month of February, and they just were not the same team. They lost her leadership and her skills. They were playing sloppy, no chemistry basketball, and everything else just went downhill. So they lost all their chemistry and were just playing sloppy basketball. All the other seniors on the team, nobody else stepped up, and they lost her performance on the court. She averaged 25 minutes a night, 12 points a game, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, a block, a steal, and it was just not the same. I don't think it's a coincidence that they lose a player and they go on to lose 6 straight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That Tay Valladay loss has been something that has been haunting this team for a while. But in spite of that they were still able to be the 1 seed in this tournament. What expectations does this team have now being in the 1 seed?
You know, Joey, I really don't know what to expect from them. This is the first time they're in the postseason since 2018. They're coming into this tournament as the 1 seed, so the expectations, are pretty high, but they've had high expectations earlier on in the year, and they weren't really able to exceed them. They played Michigan at home in the pinkout game. They lost. That was their biggest attendance game of the year. They lost their return to Rec Hall, another massive game on their schedule. They didn't beat a ranked opponent. They lost 6 straight. They won 1 in the month of February. So you don't really know what to expect. Also, nobody on this team, nobody on this roster has been to postseason play. Coach Keeger, never been to postseason play. So again, you don't know how that's going to come into factor. And then on top of that, last time they played was March 8th, which when they come and play on Thursday, that's going to have been 2 weeks since they last played. So again, you don't know how they're going to play.
And as you're saying, you don't know how this team's going to play, especially with that break. And that's why they posted on their social medias that there was more to prove. What does this team have to prove to finally put a stamp on the rest of this season?
Yeah, I think they have to prove that they're not done yet and that they can actually play and compete. They have to prove all these people wrong. You know, they didn't obviously make March Madness. They didn't make noise in the Big Ten tournament. So you're still playing in a pretty high-level new tournament, but you still have a chance to go out there and to prove to people that, you can do some damage and you can compete. And you only received 1 top 25 vote all year long. So you still have to go out there and say to these people, hey, we're the number 1 seed. There's some expectations, but you're playing with house money. Just go on a run, shock the people, and prove to them that next year you can be dangerous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that with everything they have to prove, this team wants to put a great stamp at the end of this season, and I feel like they still do have the players to do that, minus losing Tay Valladay. But with all these graduating seniors as well, they do have great players that are coming back next year that can show everybody around and Coach Keeger that this squad has a lot of building to go into next year, but the foundation really is in place. The Lady Lions will have their first matchup in the Bryce Jordan Center Thursday against George Mason. Now back to Adrianna and Jezenia at the desk.
What a great Big Ten run for wrestling, and looking forward to the WBIT run for women's basketball. Penn State wrestling had a very dominant season so far. I'm really excited to see how far they go.
Definitely. Really can't wait to see what Braden Davis does in the 125 class. I mean, he's been stellar all year long, and they've got a really great wrestler in him, and then as well, Carter Starachi, Aaron Brooks, those big names, and definitely excited to look for the women's basketball run as well. Penn State softball played its Penn State Invitational this past weekend, sweeping all of its 5 games in sunny State College. Let's hear from our softball beat reporters Annika Wagner, Chris Machado, and Will Dirksen.
Thanks, Adrianna and Jezenia. This weekend, Beardfield hosted the Penn State Softball Invitational. After starting the season 15-6, the Nittany Lions went 5-0 this weekend.
Behind several dominant outings in the circle and multiple offensive outbursts, the blue and white rolled to the weekend sweep. Let's take a look back.
The Nittany Lions held their home opener this past weekend as they hosted the 3rd annual Penn State Softball Invitational. The blue and white came into the Invitational with a 5-game losing streak, but emerged from the weekend 5-0. Penn State played 5 games throughout the Invitational, including a doubleheader on Friday. Over the span of the weekend, the Nittany Lions scored 51 runs. After the 15-5 Mercy Rule win on Sunday, head coach Clarissa Crowell commented on the team's dominant offensive performance.
The biggest thing is just us being able to execute a plan. I thought our kids did a really good job of that, and they didn't let pitchers miss over the plate today. They definitely took advantage. I was really happy to see that today.
Junior outfielder Haley Brunson was a key player in the team's explosive offensive performance. Her nearly perfect day at the plate on Sunday, with a home run in the first, a double, single, and a fielder's choice, set the tone for the game. She had more to say on the powerful offense.
Yeah, I think as an offense, we're really dangerous, and I think teams feel that when we step up to that, and we're honestly really gritty. Like, it doesn't matter if we're up by 10, down by 10, like, we're going to put up some runs.
Senior infielder Amanda Mack hit her first home run of the season on Sunday. She added on to Brunson's idea of the team's offensive explosivity.
It kind of, like,
shows them where they are, puts our foot down, and again, like, we just feel like we're really powerful and strong as offense, and it's kind of showing the team who they're kind of facing.
Penn State will need their dangerous offense when they open up Big Ten play at home against Indiana this upcoming weekend.
Well, let's start on the positive note. And what did you like about the team you saw this weekend? What really excited you?
Well, what really excited me was 4 simple words. This team can hit. And it's been a little bit of everybody that can get it done at the dish. Everybody I'm about to mention is batting over 290. Caitlin Morrison, Liana Jones, Emily Maddock, Gabby Garcia. She had a great day Friday. Had the walk-off single in game 1 against Lehigh, and then had a 3-run home run in the second game. Everybody can hit on this team. And it's not just the starters. Crowell was emptying the bench throughout the weekend if the game was going to be a blowout. And we saw players like Jenna Nelson and even Amanda Mack, Maddie Seidel too, step up at the dish. That's got to be a big boost for Crowell as they prepare to start conference play this week.
And now switching over, Will, what maybe needs some improvement? What are some of the struggling areas for the team?
Well, on a 1 to 10 scale, I would say this is a 3, maybe a 4, but the pitching left a little bit to be desired for me. Thursday against Lehigh, that epic 14-12 game. All 4 pitchers had to be used, and Crowell was making pitching change after pitching change. Not what you want to see. Crowell even said after the game, we need to be better on the front. She was very direct with us about it. And on Sunday, Maddie Volpe got the start, pitched really well, but after that 11-run first, she just wasn't the same pitcher. Gave up multiple walks and ultimately was charged with 4 runs. It's not a big issue right now, but as the season progresses, this could be something to monitor.
It's definitely difficult for a pitcher to come off the bench with such a long rest. And now, switching over to the players, who excited you this invitational? Who really stuck out?
Well, for me, it was Maddie Gordon. She was just named Student Athlete of the Week for all of Penn State, and rightfully so. She's manning that second baseman position very well in her first full season in that role, and she also can get it done at the plate. Had 2 home runs over the weekend, had so many other extra base hits. Every time Maddie Gordon comes to the plate, she can get on base, and that's the type of hitter you want. She can do a little bit of everything for this group. And for a breakout star, I was really impressed with Giselle Hernandez at shortstop. She had 3 starts at short, including on Saturday and on Sunday, and she manned the position like she'd been doing it for 10 years. Nothing got past her in the field. She had 4 games with a perfect fielding percentage. The only bad play she made was when she and Michaela Barbonente, who got the start and left, didn't really communicate very well on a pop fly. But other than that, she's impressive. She also went 2 for 7 at the plate, so you can see the talent in this true freshman Hernandez. Keep an eye out on her as the season rolls on.
Yes, and Barbonente, another great young player to keep an eye out this season.
Yes.
The Nittany Lions are right back at it this weekend at home, where they open Big Ten play against Indiana. But that's all from us for now. Let's check out the top plays from the past few weeks.
That's all for this week's edition of the Dear Old State Update. Thank you to our entire crew here at Penn State Sports Night. For Jezenia Marrero, I'm Adrianna Gallucci, and have a great night.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.